Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Peter Murphy begins now.
The bitter dispute between the state's peak nursing union and the health department has reached a new boiling point. Launceston General Hospital emergency department workers have called their own code yellow as they struggle to cope with surging demand.
Fed up and burnt out, the LGH is dealing with its own emergency.
We are tired, we are exhausted, we have lost staff.
Nurses in the ED are ramping up strike action, declaring a code yellow over chronic understaffing and rising patient loads.
To assist our members in the emergency department to decompress an overcapacity environment or indeed offer the additional resources required.
With the heart of the hospital under the pump, the union says it's concerned the problem could spread further.
Because ultimately, when the ED is over capacity or there's insufficient resources, it needs a whole of hospital response.
Claiming their calls for additional staffing and resources are falling on deaf ears.
They're not outrageous claims, they are just basic resources needed on the back of a government's policy to end ambulance ramping that has shifted workloads into emergency departments.
The government is confident its current recruiting blitz is more than just a band-aid fix.
We're looking to increase the number of nurses that we have available in our hospitals, and those investments are really starting to take shape.
The onboarding of staff does not correlate to the declining staff numbers.
Tasmanian health officials are refuting the union's claims, saying the LGH is not in code yellow and the hospital is operating as normal, adding only the Department of Health can declare an internal emergency. Cold comfort for LGH nurses now taking matters into their own hands.
We shouldn't have to do industrial action to get good quality care that Tasmanians deserve.
Victoria Easto, 7 Tasmania News.
It seems there's no end on the horizon to a long pay dispute between a group of Burnie workers and dairy giant Saputo. And they're not the only Tasmanians fighting to be paid the same as mainland workers.
After 9 weeks on the picket line, 24 maintenance workers from Saputo Burnie take their fight for pay parity to Parliament House.
Same job, same pay!
They say they won't return to work until a 23% pay gap with mainland workers is bridged.
Tasmania shouldn't be treated any differently to our counterparts in Victoria, and because we know our expertise, we know that factory so well that, yes, we feel underappreciated.
Inside the House, watching on as MPs back the fight.
If you want to come down here and do business, you do it in a fair and equitable manner, or don't bother coming.
It is a demand to an international company not to take us for granted.
A unanimous motion passing in support of their plight.
There are so many reasons why this absolutely stinks, and I was so pleased to have the whole of the House support this motion.
But according to unions, it'll take more than words to address pay inequality they say is rife in Tasmania.
What is now going to happen is we're going to have to see action. The same issue is happening at Tas Networks. We've got the issue at Metro Tasmania. We've got the issue at Saputo Burnie. This issue is right across industries in Tasmania.
The electrical union warning of possible outages next Wednesday when line workers down tools to bridge a 30% pay gap.
Some of the rhetoric from the union about blackouts is irresponsible. We can work through these things in a measured way.
Executives and CEOs on 600 grand a year want to tell line workers they're not worth the same money as their national counterparts, then I'm sure for their money they'll be able to go out and fix and get people's power back on if there's a storm or an outage.
Saputo says it made a fair offer in June and has been waiting for staff to return to the bargaining table. Nick Kelly, 7 Tasmania News.
An interstate man is facing 15 separate charges following the seizure of a 9mm submachine gun which was discharged inside a Launceston hotel room last month. Police made the discovery after the offender was seen acting suspiciously at the airport.
An offender had booked into a room and had a number of firearms. One of those firearms he discharged a number of times through a doorway and through a wall.
No one was injured during the incident. Tasmania Police have seized an additional 30 firearms across the Northern District in the past month, charging 19 other people. It's been labelled the biggest stuff-up in Tasmanian infrastructure history. The Spirit of Tasmania operator admitting the interim wharf to host the new ferries isn't deep enough. The government under the pump during question time today on upgrades to accommodate the new vessels.
Replacing the new Bass Strait ferries has been all but smooth sailing for the government. Set to hit our shores early 2026, there seems to be yet another hurdle to jump. Operator TT Line confirming Devonport's Berth 1 is too shallow to host the ships when fully loaded, with passengers, vehicles and freight.
This is a complete farce. You've spent nearly $1 billion on ships that can barely be half filled because you haven't delivered the wharf upgrades. How on earth has this happened?
We will get the job done. We will get the job done. Yes, there, of course, there are challenges, and this is a massive project.
The Premier questioned as to why $50 million is being spent on the upgrades when capacity between the current and new vessels would remain the same. The government claiming there would still be benefits.
It is safer for caravans and camper vans with vehicles of course, with the wider lanes.
The Spirits, if they do use the interim solution, won't actually offer any additional passengers or freight. No economic benefit whatsoever. So the question's got to be asked what the benefit is.
TT Line claiming it's only an interim solution, with some concerns raised from industries who may be affected by the ferries operating at lesser capacity.
There are operators, especially in the northwest, that would be feeling frustrated and worried. We do want this capacity online as soon as possible.
What we could see here is the Spirits of Tasmania, the new ships arriving in Tasmania but having nowhere to actually operate from, not having a berth facility to fully operate from.
Lily Thompson, 7 Tasmanian News.
The Greens are looking to amend a bill put forward by the government to allow tenants the ability to make minor modifications to their homes. Vicar Bailey says while the government's bill, the Residential Tenancy Act, is a step in the right direction, there are important reasons as to why renters might need to make modifications to their homes, including for safety, security or accessibility.
These are basic rights I think that most in the community will understand. They will go some way to improving the rights, the experience and the well-being of tenants.
The bill will now be up for debate in the coming weeks. Tasmania's Royal Botanical Gardens are getting set for a facelift in time for spring thanks to a multi-million-dollar boost from the state government. An improved visitor centre, pathways and irrigation system taking root at the site already, hoping to flourish guest experience.
The green heart of Hobart City for more than 2 centuries.
It is one of Tasmania's true cultural and heritage icons.
Nearly $8 million is being spent to preserve the nation's second oldest botanical gardens, helping it bloom for generations to come, with 500,000 people soaking up the surroundings every year.
1990 was the last significant investment in this in the gardens in terms of visitor infrastructure.
This is a really significant, not only botanical asset for our state, but also a cultural asset and a social aspect for Tasmania.
The makeover will see an upgraded visitor centre replacing outdated facilities and a high quality food and beverage space.
Highlighting Tasmanian produce. So the Botanical Gardens is all about showcasing Tasmanian fine quality.
That's in addition to improved pathways, lighting and parking.
Because it's an old site, it's developed a long time ago. Some of the infrastructure has lagged in terms of its modern standards.
And more importantly, boosting accessibility, allowing many more people to enjoy the gardens.
Some access improvement in the carriageway, so there'll be a new dedicated pedestrian walkway that's created. There'll be improvement to some of the accessible ramps.
The site will operate as usual during construction, with some upgrades expected to be complete by November, hoping it will leave other botanical gardens on the mainland green with envy. Rebecca Gaidaneris, 7 Tasmanian News.
Hill Street grocers across the state will be blooming with yellow as they deck out stores in the lead up to Cancer Council Tasmania's annual Daffodil Day on August 22, raising awareness and vital funds for its services and for those affected by cancer.
These services we provide free of charge to the Tasmanian community, which is only made possible through the wonderful generosity of people who donate.
Pins and some pens. There's also some beanies, some socks and some little superhero teddy bears you can purchase in-store across all 10 stores statewide.
The goal is to raise $100,000 for the organisation. Young people forced to sleep rough are the focus of a series of community campaigns happening this National Homelessness Week. Tasmania's youth making up a quarter of those experiencing life on the streets as our leaders set out to flip those stats.
Tyson Montgomery has a secure home, work and gives back to his community. But it wasn't always that way.
Couch surfing to start off with, that couch surfing then dried up. As it dried up, then ended up on the street, living in sleeping bags, tents, sometimes out front of churches.
He's encouraging young people to speak up this Homelessness Week, with census data indicating young Tasmanians continue to be overrepresented when it comes to sleeping rough.
It's harder for them to get into the private rental market. It's harder for them to get into social housing even, because their incomes are often lower than other people.
The Off the Couch campaign hoping to start conversations about housing insecurity and encourage young people to seek help.
Youth need to understand that there are support services there for them, and that's what today's all about, is linking them up with those services, knowing that there is support.
It's not the only council noticing a spike in young people doing it tough. Hobart's Street to Stage campaign aiming to raise awareness this weekend about a vital health service.
And that Health with Dignity program has supported over 250 people in the first 12 months to access a GP for free.
New data from the Salvation Army indicates a quarter of all Australians are now concerned about becoming homeless. Community organisations using National Homelessness Week to call for additional funding and support to meet soaring demand.
More funding would be great, but realistically, I don't know if we will ever meet the demand because the demand is really very high at the moment.
With calls for more youth to independence facilities that teach life skills, offering more than just a roof.
Homelessness cannot be just house and forget. It's about walking the journey together for a better life.
Ruby Cairns, 7 Tasmania News.
Meanwhile, charities in the state's north say there's been enough talk. Now it's time for action following the annual homelessness awareness walk through the Launceston CBD. School students leading the crowd from City Park to Royal Park as a show of support, as Vinnie's calls governments nationwide to stump up some cash to fix the problem.
I'm here today officially asking for all levels of government, both federal and state, to increase their commitment to actually resolve homelessness in this country.
Vinnie's alone has helped 3,500 Tasmanians seeking emergency relief so far this year. Upgrades to the Waratah Falls and Rail Bridge are now complete. $300,000 from the state government has gone towards improving the walking trails and bridges, boosting safety, accessibility and overall visitor experience. The upgrades also helping to retain and highlight the heritage value of the area.
Jeff Vaughan admits the Tigers will be a bit behind the 8 ball heading into this weekend's pre-season top-end T20 series, but says there's still plenty of time until they need to be at 100%. And he's relishing the chance to give a handful of relative unknowns a shot at demanding more regular appearances.
Hopefully we come back from Darwin and say, gee, we didn't know that about a young player who might force his way into either our white ball team or our red ball team or down the track into purple as well.
Mac Wright and Maisie Gibson showing off the new retro kit worn 20 years ago by the ING Cup winning Tigers, who broke Tasmania's 26-year-long one-day cup drought. The Glenorchy Knights' position as Tasmania's leading NPL goal scorers will hopefully hold them in good stead tonight as they play the Australia Cup's round of 32. It'll be no walk in the park on enemy turf against Northwest Sydney Spirit, who are making their second cup appearance in 3 years. But the Knights will be drawing on that nail-biting Lackaseljak victory that got them here.
It's a good example of what the group's mettle is like. You know, their mentality is really, really solid. We're up against it tonight, but I really do believe that with the playing group that we've got, that we're a real opportunity.
They can't lose focus either on maintaining the NPL ladder leadership, flying straight home to play Riverside on Saturday. Meanwhile, the final round fixture has been locked in by the AFL and it'll be a Hawks-Roos clash at UTAS Stadium at 4:35 on Saturday, August 24. It means Launceston draftee Colby McKercher will play his first AFL game back on his home paddock.
Good evening. Denali and Friendly Beaches reached the state's top today of 17 degrees, a sign of good things to come. Hobart and Burnie 16 and 15 for both Launceston and Devonport. King Island along with Smithton, St Helens, Maria Island Grove and Bushy Park all reached 16, 14 for Low Head and Strawn and 9 for Lyweni. Today's satellite image shows low to mid-level cloud mainly over the west and the south. A mid to high level cloud band lies over waters just to the west and south of Tasmania. Tomorrow a ridge of high pressure will pass from Perth and over to Sydney as a cold front crosses the South Australian coast. North to northwesterly winds 20 to 30 knots, reaching 35 knots in the southwest, with westerly swells building to 3 metres. We have a gale warning for waters between Southeast Cape to Sandy Cape and a strong wind warning for remaining coastal waters including Storm Bay and the Southwest Lakes, sparing the east of Flinders Island. Partly cloudy in Hobart tomorrow 16, possible late showers for both Cygnet and for the Valley of Love 15. Increasing showers for Launceston 15, showery for Devonport 14 and much the same for Campbelltown 13 to the top. 13 and increasing showers for Burnie, developing showers on the way for Strawn 15, wet and windy in Smithton with 14 there. A couple of showers for St Helens 15, 15 also for Swansea although cloudy and 13 the high for Fingal with a shower or 2. The north may wake to a foggy start on Friday followed by showers that will contract to the west coast and the Bass Strait Islands. Saturday, light showers about the west, far south, Bass Strait Islands and possibly the northeast. And on Sunday, light showers about the west and far south with temperatures increasing to 18 in some parts of the state. Across the country tomorrow, a frosty morning for Canberra. -3 the low and 15 the high. Late showers for Melbourne 15. Perth and Sydney both 20 degrees. Hobart right now, cloudy, 12 degrees. Also partly cloudy in Launceston with 10 and partly cloudy in Devonport with 12. That's the weather forecast for this Wednesday, Murph. Now, I know it's your shopping day because all of the specials come out, but I hope you didn't forget your seniors card this week.
Kai, don't you worry about that. It's always at the ready. By the way, you weren't the youngest person on this news set tonight either. And that's all from our news set this evening. I'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us. Good night.